On the night of March 3, 1991, Rodney King, a 25-year-old black man, was driving home from a party. He had spent the evening celebrating with friends, enjoying the night, and perhaps not fully aware of the consequences that would soon follow. Intoxicated and exceeding the speed limit, he attracted the attention of the California Highway Patrol, leading to a pursuit. The flashing lights and sirens behind him signaled the beginning of a chase that would escalate far beyond a simple traffic stop. The chase ended on a dark street in Lakeview Terrace, a quiet neighborhood that would soon become infamous. The stillness of the night was shattered by the screeching of tires and the arrival of multiple police vehicles. What unfolded next was recorded on a grainy videotape by a nearby resident, George Holliday, who was awakened by the commotion. He grabbed his camcorder and began filming, capturing a scene that would soon be etched into the collective memory of the nation. 4 Los Angeles Police Department officers, 3 white and 1 Hispanic, surrounded King. They ordered him to lie down, but what followed was far from a standard arrest procedure. The officers proceeded to beat him with batons, delivering over 50 blows. Each strike was a brutal reminder of the power dynamics at play, as King lay defenseless on the ground. King suffered multiple skull fractures, a broken cheekbone, and permanent brain damage. His injuries were severe, a testament to the excessive force used by the officers. This video footage, when broadcast globally, shocked the world, becoming a stark symbol of police brutality and racial injustice. The grainy images were replayed on news channels, igniting outrage and disbelief. The incident threw a harsh spotlight on the already strained relationship between law enforcement and the black community in Los Angeles, sparking a national debate about race, policing, and the justice system. Protests erupted, and the city of Los Angeles found itself at the epicenter of a movement demanding change and accountability. The aftermath of the beating saw widespread protests and riots as the community's frustration boiled over. The streets of Los Angeles were filled with voices calling for justice, and the Rodney King incident became a catalyst for a broader conversation about systemic racism and police reform. The legal proceedings that followed were closely watched as the 4 officers were put on trial. The outcome of the trial would further fuel the fire of public opinion as the nation awaited justice for Rodney King. Rodney King himself became a reluctant symbol of the fight against police brutality. His words, "Can we all get along?" resonated deeply, encapsulating the hope for a future where such violence would no longer be tolerated. The trial of the 4 officers charged with the brutal beating of Rodney King began on March 5, 1992. This case was not just another trial, it was a pivotal moment in American history, drawing intense media attention and public scrutiny. The prosecution presented the graphic videotape as central evidence, a video that had been broadcasted nationwide, showing the officers repeatedly striking King with batons. This footage was shocking and disturbing, leaving an indelible mark on the public consciousness. Meanwhile, the defense argued that King had resisted arrest and posed a threat to the officers. They claimed that the officers were following protocol and that their actions were justified under the circumstances. This argument was met with skepticism by many who had seen the video. The trial was controversially moved from Los Angeles to Simi Valley, a predominantly white suburb. This relocation was seen by many as an attempt to find a more sympathetic jury, one that might be more inclined to acquit the officers. This decision, widely criticized, was seen as a tactical maneuver to secure a jury more sympathetic to the officers. Critics argued that this move undermined the fairness of the trial and was a blatant attempt to manipulate the outcome. On April 29, 1992, after a lengthy and highly publicized trial, the jury reached a verdict. The nation held its breath, waiting to hear the outcome of this landmark case. The officers were acquitted on all charges except for 1 count of excessive force against 1 officer, on which the jury deadlocked. This partial acquittal was seen by many as a failure of the justice system to hold the officers accountable for their actions. The acquittals sent shockwaves across the nation, met with disbelief and outrage, particularly in the black community, who saw it as a blatant miscarriage of justice. The verdict was a stark reminder of the deep-seated racial inequalities that persisted in the United States. This acquittal was the spark that ignited a powder keg of simmering racial tensions in Los Angeles. The city erupted in protests and riots as people took to the streets to express their anger and frustration. The events that followed would leave a lasting impact on the city and the nation, highlighting the urgent need for systemic change and justice. The acquittal of the officers in the Rodney King trial ignited an explosion of rage and frustration that had been building for decades. Within hours of the verdict, protests erupted in south-central Los Angeles. The demonstrations quickly escalated into widespread rioting, looting, and arson. For 6 days, the city was engulfed in chaos and violence. The LA riots, as they became known, left a city scarred and a nation shaken. Over 60 people were killed, and thousands more were injured. The riots caused billions of dollars in property damage. The unrest exposed the deep racial and economic disparities that plagued American society, highlighting the urgent need for dialogue and reform. In the aftermath of the riots, Rodney King became an unlikely symbol of peace. His televised plea for calm, "Can we all get along?" resonated with a nation yearning for reconciliation. Thrust into the national spotlight, King struggled to rebuild his life, facing personal demons and legal troubles. Despite the trauma he endured, King expressed forgiveness towards the officers who beat him. He received a $3.8 million settlement from the city of Los Angeles. However, the money could not erase the physical and emotional scars he carried. King's life became a tragic reminder of the human cost of injustice. Section 5. A Nation Divided, Examining the Fault Lines. The Rodney King incident and its aftermath exposed the deep racial and social divisions that plagued American society. The incident sparked a national conversation about race, police brutality, and the criminal justice system. It forced Americans to confront uncomfortable truths about their nation's history of racial inequality. The events of 1992 served as a wake-up call, highlighting the urgent need for police reform, community policing, and dialogue between law enforcement and communities of color. The Rodney King story became a touchstone for understanding the complexities of race relations in America. Section 6. From Rodney King to Today. A Legacy of Pain and Progress. The legacy of Rodney King continues to resonate today, serving as a powerful symbol of the struggle against racial injustice and police brutality. His story remains a stark reminder of the persistent issue of police brutality against people of color, a problem that has plagued our society for decades. The rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and other social justice organizations reflects the ongoing fight for racial equality and police accountability. These movements have mobilized millions, bringing attention to the systemic issues that have long been ignored. While progress has been made since 1992, the fight for justice is far from over. The efforts of activists, community leaders, and everyday citizens continue to push for meaningful change in our legal and social systems. The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others at the hands of law enforcement demonstrate the continued need for systemic change. These tragic events have sparked a global outcry, demanding justice and reform. The call for systemic change in law enforcement is louder than ever, with demands for better training, accountability, and community oversight. The goal is to create a system that truly serves and protects all citizens, regardless of race. The echoes of Rodney King's plea for peace and understanding still ring true today. His words remind us of the importance of empathy, unity, and the relentless pursuit of justice. As we reflect on his legacy, we are reminded that the journey towards equality is ongoing, and it requires the collective effort of us all. Section 7. The Blue Wall of Silence. Police Brutality, Then and Now. The Rodney King incident brought to light the issue of the Blue Wall of Silence, the unwritten code of silence among law enforcement officers that protects those who engage in misconduct. The reluctance of officers to report wrongdoing by their colleagues allows for a culture of impunity to flourish. The blue wall of silence remains a significant obstacle to police accountability. It fosters distrust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. Breaking down this wall is crucial to building trust and ensuring that officers who abuse their power are held accountable for their actions. Section 8. The Power of Video Evidence, Changing the Narrative. The Rodney King incident marked a turning point in the way Americans viewed police brutality. The graphic video footage of King's beating, captured by a bystander, provided undeniable evidence of police misconduct. It shattered the blue wall of silence and forced the nation to confront the reality of police brutality. The proliferation of smartphones and social media has made it easier than ever to document instances of police brutality. Video evidence has become a powerful tool for holding law enforcement accountable. It has also raised awareness about the issue and galvanized public support for police reform. Section 9. Unhealed wounds, unfinished business. The fight for justice continues. The wounds of the Rodney King incident remain unhealed. The underlying issues of racial bias, systemic racism, and police brutality continue to plague American society. The fight for justice requires a multifaceted approach that addresses these issues at their root. This includes reforming police training and hiring practices, implementing stricter use of force policies, and promoting community policing initiatives. It also requires addressing the underlying social and economic disparities that contribute to crime and violence. The quest for justice is an ongoing process that demands sustained effort and commitment. Section 10. Conclusion, Echoes of Injustice, Calls for Change. The Rodney King story is a tragic reminder of the human cost of injustice. It is a story that continues to resonate today, as the fight for racial equality and police accountability continues. The echoes of King's plea for peace and understanding still ring true, calling for a more just and equitable society. The quest for justice is a long and